All right, we're going to get started with the final panel of the day. I'm Sara Abiusi. I'm an Accenture Managing Director. I'm actually out of Washington, D.C., but this is, I guess, my second Accenture home, if you will. So I know that Manny welcomed you to One Manhattan West earlier today, but I welcome you as well. And you have picked a really good day. If you look at the view, I've been here many times when the view is just a big cloud. So we thank that for New York. I'm really happy to be here. I have a lot of love for AABDC and all the work they've done over the years. We started this partnership probably, 8 years ago, I guess. And I think it's still living really strong. I'm proud of the events that Manny and John have put on together. So thank you for joining us today. So we're the last panel of the day, and when I think about this panel, what I think about is we're going to talk a lot of practical information. The panelists have come prepared with some ideas, as well as examples of what they've seen in their industry and their actual own companies of what they see taking root. They'll talk about some of the good, and then they'll actually talk about some of the things they learned from some of the missteps as well. So I think it should be a really great panel, and I think we're really excited to talk to everybody. So I'm just going to say who we have, and then I'm going to let them introduce themselves in a minute. Mark Erickson, Neda, Siadatan, and Brenda, Tsai. And let's just start out with the first question. So we'll go from Mark to Neda to Brenda, but please introduce yourself and talk about how AI is impacting your industry or your business function that you work in.
Great. Hi, everyone. Mark Erickson. So thank you, Sara, so much for hosting, and John for inviting me. I'm a relative newcomer to AABR. I work across the street at BlackRock. I've been at BlackRock for 4 years. I'm one of the leaders of the Financial Institutions Group, and we manage money for insurance companies. We manage about $900 billion for all the leading insurance companies in the world. So in terms of the panel, and I'll answer the question, we know we're standing between you and drinks, so we're going to make this the most exciting panel of the day. So please interrupt, ask questions, make this fun, and you'll earn your drinks. So in terms of how AI is affecting my business, so my job is to go out and speak to all the big insurance companies in the US, in Europe, in Asia, and I would say there are really two big topics that come up in every conversation. One is private credit, and the second is AI. So we'll leave private credit to the side, happy to talk about that over drinks, that deserves a drink or two. But in terms of AI, there's really two topics that clients care about. One is the investment opportunity and risk, and second is AI implementation within their own companies. So on the first, the estimate is that approximately $3 trillion will be spent on AI CapEx over the next 3 years, which is an incredible amount of money. And it's really transforming the big tech companies that have transformed our lives from balance sheet light businesses to balance sheet heavy businesses. That is quite a transformation. And that has an impact on equity, fixed income markets, and that funding, that $3 trillion, where is that money coming from? Half of it will come from internally generated cash flow, a quarter of it will come from the public markets, and a quarter of it will come from private credit. So that's where those two pieces intersect. And then secondly, with respect to implementation within their own companies, if you listen to an earnings call from any of these insurance companies, from the CEO, CFO perspective, they're thinking about AI implementation throughout the value chain, everything from underwriting through claims management, investments, customer service, and they're trying to figure out what can they do with their own internal resources, and then secondly, where do they need to partner with the big AI companies to implement that successfully.
All right, so still up, right? We're still trying to keep you motivated to be interactive. So my name is Neda Siadatan. I work at Morgan Stanley. I'm responsible for technology strategy and execution, supporting the entire wealth management technology portfolio, supporting our clients, advisors, operations, call center across different line of businesses, banking, advisory, capital markets, stock plan, and so forth. I'm also responsible for running our international wealth management technology division. So when it comes to AI, I feel like I use it every day, whether it's like personal or work. And when I think back to the time when the smartphone came out, and it was everybody still had a flip phone. If you had a smartphone, you were the cool kid because it's a neat gadget. But fast forward, we cannot. I can speak for myself. I cannot even live for 1 second without my phones right here next to me. So it has become impossible to live without it. I think about AI and the impact of that is really, I feel like the history is repeating itself. First, when I downloaded ChatGPT, I was playing around with it, to the point now, even I'm trying to help my kids to prepare for exam, using it to produce sample tests for them. Or if I'm planning a vacation with my family, different age group for 2 weeks in Spain, I used AI to really help with itinerary, the different tours and everything else. So personally, it's been tremendous, and even trying to come up with the technology trends, whether it's in a digital asset, whether it's AI, ChatGPT is my best friend. And in all my commutes, I really I feel like talking. It's like instead of calling someone, I just talk to ChatGPT, and I'm trying to learn as much as possible. When it comes to our industry, and obviously Morgan Stanley financial industry, and I think it's definitely has a huge impact. But I would say the impact is not really the same as what some of the headlines suggests. It's not about replacing our financial advisors, replacing our engineers, but really how do we provide AI for our financial advisors, for our engineers, for all the roles that we have to become more efficient and more productive? How do we give them capability so that instead of using and doing repetitive tasks, to do more of strategic thinking, focus on innovation, focus on critical decisioning and supporting our clients. So I would say from both personally and industry-wise, I see a huge impact.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me here. I'm Brenda Tsai. I am a board advisor and director. I've held 5 CMO roles across mostly financial services, and most recently was the CMO at Bloomberg. Throughout my career, I've always been brought into companies to really modernize with marketing technology, whether it be, hey, get us on the internet, help us with social media, or in this day and age, really help us get more productive, efficient, and smarter with AI. AI is not just an incremental tool, in my view. It is re-architecting how we will work. And I think it is incredibly important to understand AI and how it will change what you do in your workflows to make you more efficient, more productive, and smarter in doing whatever it is you do for a living. Very excited to be here, and I'll be sharing a little bit of the go-to-market practices that we've been using and seeing in AI.
Great, thank you all for the wonderful introductions. As Mark said, we want to make this a bit interactive. We're going to let the panel answer some initial questions, but at the last 10 minutes, we have some time reserved for audience questions. So as you listen to all the great information, if you want to keep in your back of your mind that special question you'd like to ask, please start thinking. All right, so we talked about making this real. So I'm going to ask in reverse order. We're going to go Brenda, and then Neda, and then Mark, for some more real-life examples. A specific AI deployment that you're aware of in your organization or in your industry that is live and delivering meaningful impact. Let's talk about really what it does, because it can be, sometimes we talk about agents and what is an agent, what does it do? I'm going to talk about really how it's affected how your team works and what the impact was for your company.
So I'm going to talk about an example at Bloomberg, and as I looked at the marketing and the go-to-market for the company, we were really looking at it from a couple of angles. One, how was AI going to change how marketing was done in 2 to 3 years? And how do we get ahead of that by looking at it from a futuristic and also end-to-end workflow perspective? So in looking at first, how do people find information? New buyers, how do they understand your products and services? What we saw was 20% of our search traffic was actually going away. It was down, and it was vaporizing. Where it was going, of course, was the LLMs. Now, for those who aren't marketers, traditionally, a lot of the digital marketing mix is buying search terms on Google. It is ensuring that you have the right keywords on your website. It's ensuring that you redirect your owned properties. If that is gone, 20% of that is gone, that means 20% of your demand generation is gone. The other key stat to know is B2B buyers, 70% of that purchase is actually, that decision rather, is made before they actually call a salesperson, before they call you. And so it is incredibly important to get those prospect names, to get that prospect interest through your website, through the search terms, etc. Because 20% of that was going away, we first had to do a significant audit of all of the LLMs, every LLM out there, to understand, okay, how were we ranking? Were we showing up? What were the questions that were coming up? And were they in any way mentioning the company or any of our solutions? And the answer to that was very humbling, right? We weren't showing up in the way we should have as a dominant leader in this space. To remedy that, we needed a new playbook. So we had to figure out what was the source of citations for these LLMs. That included things like, you wouldn't believe it, but it's true, Reddit and social media, a lot of publicly available Wikipedia, a lot of third-party citations, a lot of news media, so a lot of credentialing and social proof. So ensuring that we had a plan of attack to actually get within those areas was incredibly important. In addition, it amped up our earned media strategy. So ensuring that we had the right outreach to other media outlets was quite important as well. As a result, we're able to make up some of that traffic. In addition, we start to put a lot of our content into answer form, right? Because the questions that people are asking in the LLMs is more readily answered with dense content that directly fits into that model. And as a result, we were able to reboot and recapture some of that traffic. In addition, we're thinking about, okay, what if we're not pitching to humans anymore, but we're pitching to bots? So we're marketing to bots that are then recommending to humans. How do you approach that challenge? And what form does your content need to take in order to ensure that you show up in the right way? So that's a marketing and go-to-market example, but you all are in functions with analogous solutions. In other words, in 3 years, think about your function and think about how it will most dramatically change, right? Whether it be through the way people find you, the way you go to market, the way you approach clients. You know, there's got to be a big disruption that keeps you up at night. Plan for it, because it's happening, and it's re-architecting the work itself. You can't think of it incrementally. You have to think of it disruptively.
So for my use case, I picked a little different, not so much a business-facing use case, but more around, we keep talking about how AI is going to help us to be more efficient, more productive. So when, what we have done within my organization, and I'm sure it's very common across many other organizations, but we really were ahead, like first, early on, start introducing the AI tools for our team from the technical, for technology delivery execution perspective. So first we initially started introducing the tools that will help with documenting requirements, testing, and so forth, more in like AI assisted mode. We have fast tracked that and we actually pivoted to completely be AI driven, especially as the agentic AI has been introduced. We have incorporated that into our end-to-end software delivery cycle. So from the requirement documentation to technical design to code generation, testing, and even production support. And obviously, like this is an area that is continually evolving, but it's very fascinating to see how this will have an impact on every single role when you think about the technology delivery. Even our product owners, how they have to deliver, moving, think about how you're operating in agile way and differently, more of it, going back to documenting your business requirement end to end, so that you can feed into the agents, that they can translate that to the technical design, and ultimately for other agents to be able to generate code, testing, and so forth. And the biggest challenge, the biggest impact that I see and what I've learned and observed is that adopting tools actually is the easiest. And that I've seen very proud team to be very nimble to adapt as it's actually maturing. I think that was the easy part. What I see over time as this is going to be more at scale is the impact on the change management, on governance structure, on the roles. Obviously, every single role, if you're an engineer, if you're a tester, the way that you operate today is going to be completely evolving in the future. It's even going back to how there's this thing that AI would replace the entry-level jobs. What is that impact, and how is that going to be translated to the software developers, the testers, and so forth? So it's been fascinating to watch that, and obviously fast track looking at as these things evolving, how we're going to be defining the different roles, what is the impact on the whole organizational model, how do we pivot away from Agile and Jira and all the different tools that we use on a day-to-day basis for technology delivery.
Great, thank you. So Sara asked us to just pick one live specific example. There are countless work streams, I'm sure, like in your companies. So the one specific use case that I picked is from our Aladdin business. BlackRock has a lot of businesses, but one of them is called Aladdin, which is an investment and risk portfolio system for banks, asset managers, insurance companies around the world. There are about 1,000 clients on it, around $25 trillion. And where AI implemented within that system works very, very well is in large data analysis. So the ingestion of all of those millions and countless positions, the risk analytics associated with it, all the scenario analysis. And what it's very, very good at is finding the risk anomalies and where there's risk drift within portfolios that human beings may not be catching on to because it's very gradual and over time. And then alerting the human beings who actually make the investment decision of, hey, look over here, look at this thing. Because a position which might look very, very normal, 999 days out of 1,000, for a human being looking at that, they might miss the 1 day out of 1,000 where it's out of sync of where it should be. And the AI agents are very, very good at identifying those things. And again, alerting them to the human beings who then are responsible for making the adjustments within the investment portfolios or the risk parameters to accommodate for this.
Those are great. I was sitting here listening to everybody's examples, and what I was thinking about is my job. So my job is at Accenture is I run quality for Canada, and I used to say quality was a dirty word because I found it incredibly sometimes boring, and I thought those people that do quality, I don't want to be them. Eventually I am. But what really I'm good at is reading tea leaves. And when I think about that being risk, looking for anomalies, being able to predict problems way in advance or something's gonna happen. And what I'm doing, like with my own agentic and AI agents, is I'm trying to use agentic in my day-to-day life to basically predict what in 3 months is going to be a problem. So my hope is, like, not that I'm gonna put myself out of business, like I'd love to have a job. I think my family loves that, and honestly, that I have a job as well. But that I could do other things with my time. So I think a lot of what we talk about also is identifying things earlier, looking for risks, looking for opportunities for leads where we may have not ever seen a lead before, like through Reddit or whatever, things like that, and using our time and the people that we have in a much more effective way to basically generate revenue, reduce cost, or provide like better experiences. So I just thought, like, I was thinking, like, okay, what am I doing personally in my own job? And this is not necessarily going to need legal for Accenture overall, but when I think about like why it's important is, well, there is a problem with a delivery or a client relationship. It takes a lot of time to repair it, and it's not time based on entry level people, right? It's time for senior people to go have a conversation and fix things and revamp. And so even if we can do that, so we can be focused on growth, it's just a good thing.
I think you said it better than I did. So I think like the bottom line of that is like, how do you use these tools to ask better questions earlier in the process?
So I'm going to ask you, so we talked about something good that you found. Can you tell us maybe about a misstep or something that you tried and it just didn't really happen the way you thought it was going to?
Absolutely. So as I mentioned, we have a lot of different work streams and really every single business and every single function. There's active encouragement of trial and error, and there's certainly a lot of errors along the way. And I think if I could sum it up, like what is the moral of the story, is that in the use cases where it works, like the one that I mentioned, it's very defined in terms of what's the process. There's a good data set underlying it. There are rules-based systems to follow, and the AI can make those processes go faster, scale them, get to better questions earlier. And where there is the opposite, where there aren't good parameters of what the problem is, there aren't good data sets underlying it, applying AI only just magnifies the ambiguities that we actually don't exactly know what the problem is and don't have rules to identify it. And so I guess in the places where it's been less successful, it's those cases where the problem set itself or the ownership of the problem is more ambiguous, and therefore there isn't a person or a group of people, driving the outcome that is, tangible for either ourselves or the client.
As much as things change, much they stay the same, right? I mean, when you have less clarity on what you're trying to achieve, it can always be cut, phased, or fuzzed out and whatnot. So, good points. So we talked about this in certain ways around agents, agentic, taking roles, people out of the equation. You heard what the guy who runs Anthropic said 50% of entry-level roles will go away. As a mom with a freshman in college who loves data analytics, this is clearly a very big concern in my mind. But maybe we could start with Neda. From what you've seen, where does the human mode sit, and what specific challenges do you see?
Thanks, Sara. So in my view, human mode is not just about the creativity that obviously the human brings to the table, and it's not just technical skills. I think if you think about the judgment, the accountability, the knowledge and SME that is not replaceable, whether it's from the platform perspective, whether it's from experience of we've been there, done that, and what we have learned, those are the things that are not replaceable. And at the end of the day, AI, as the powerful as it is, it can give you options, but it cannot really own the outcome. At the end of the day, you need a human involvement based on this skill set that they have to look at those options and pick the outcome that is actually most suitable for their clients, for the risk profiles, and for every different use cases that obviously that's applicable. Because at the end of the day, if something goes wrong, you cannot go back to AI, blame the AI. You have to have somebody who has taken accountability of picking that outcome, and when it goes wrong, they can react to it and obviously own it. The challenges that I see is in two folds. One is, what we call it over automation. We're getting to the extreme mode of now, can everything be automated? And I think that's risky because you cannot just prematurely automate everything without having the right governance, process definition, and even recovery and business continuity plan in place. I think that's what we should be very intentional of what is truly can be automated versus assisted, or maybe not. It has to be having human intervention in the loop. And the second thing that I see is that we take the AI learning and educating AI for our teams for granted, because it's so simple. We're like, oh, everybody can use it. And we actually not making enough investment to train our team to be able to use these tools in the right way. Going back to the negative things, the hallucination, the negative impact that can AI have, how do we make sure that we equip our team and continue upskilling them and training them to use those tools in the right way, especially for industries like ours that is very heavily regulated. So at the end of the day, I think the leaders who are going to be successful as obviously, I was going to say in the future, AI is here, so it's now, are the ones that can recognize and identify what task fully can be automated and where there's a resource that needs to be in the loop to make sure that they're building that, the governance and the structure and the judgment that is needed.
Thank you. Brenda, over for you.
In terms of the human mode, I think we need to focus on three very simple things. RJO is the acronym. I'm going to invent for it. So the first is relationship. So if you're in a business, you know that your clients are handing you not just a purchase decision, right? They're handing you their risk, their career, and that handover takes a lot of trust. The trust is built by a relationship. The relationship means that they know that you're going to apply human judgment in ultimately delivering the outcome they need, right? It's the relationship build that ultimately makes business go. Otherwise, we're just bots serving each other in this robotic world, very dystopian. So I would really, really focus on building that relationship and that trust. I can't tell you how many times I've been in a situation in a competitive bid where we were double the price, where we weren't on the top league tables, but we still got the sale because the person on the other side said, I trust you. I trust you're going to deliver. I trust you know me. I trust you're going to implement. And I trust if the blank hits the fan, you're going to solve it. So R is the first thing. The second thing is judgment, the J. And the judgment is really recognizing that AI is this generalized intelligence, right? But it can't always prioritize or put in the right ordinal order the different variables that are going into the decision, right? And there are nuances in every situation. There may be legalistic, regulatory nuances, there may be client histories, there may be certain things that are happening in the market right then, and there may be ethics that are involved. All of that requires seasoned judgment that only you have as a practice profession. The last thing I would say is the O, which is originality. Now, the big fear of AI is that if everything's AI, everything's going to be commoditized because the information will be the same. The big differentiator will be the original content, the original data that companies and humans can harness. So what is your original perspective? RJO. In terms of challenge, AI is a great enabler, but it can enable in two directions. And I'm just going to share a small story. My sister is a cardiologist oncologist and does very serious, very sad cases that are significant, right? Life or death situations, literally. She does a lot of mentoring of doctors, and doctors have AI as well that are helping inform some of their cases. It's called open evidence, I believe. She was mentoring somebody, and they came to her with a prognosis for one of the patients, and immediately she saw 5 mistakes. And she said, "Where did you get this?" And they shuffled around a little bit, and they, were looking down, and ultimately they said, "Well, I put it in open evidence, and this is what I got. I didn't have a lot of time. I was on call last night." Imagine that situation, and imagine if you were the patient in that situation, right? And then think about how you can prevent that, right? So make sure that we use AI for good, make sure you apply human judgment and have the right guardrails around it to ensure it doesn't go rogue. AI can go in both directions.
I just want to agree on Brenda's judgment point. So the one thing that I would say from the financial services point of view is AI, what we call AI, large language models are new, but what we used to call quantitative strategies, which now everyone calls AI, that's not new. So that's about 30 plus years old. And when quantitative strategies were coming up, managing money with machines and machine learning, the same questions came up. Are all the finance jobs going to go away? Well, all the finance jobs didn't go away. We still need human beings and judgment to build the models, verify them to make sure they work. I believe the same thing will happen with large language models.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of that, that's a concern that comes up all the time. Going back to what I was saying, I don't think it's going to replace the roles, is that because the financial advisors talk about how their clients are now coming to them much smarter because they use whatever the software they use, and they ask a bunch of questions, and they come like, "Oh, what about this investment strategy? What about that tax harvesting model and so forth?" So, one of the things that we have been talking about, how do we get ahead of that, and how do we make sure our financial advisors can be equipped to answer those questions? Because at the end of the day, to your point, Brenda, and to your point, Mark, those roles will not go away. The clients want to have that trust relationship with their FAs because they're entrusting them with their money. So it's going to be interesting.
This is maybe a little bit crass, but when I hear you all talk, I think check yourself before you wreck yourself, right? It's all these things that are all good, but you always have to check the assumptions and everything around it. And judgment is not all the data is going to tell you all the nuance about the whole situation. So, all right, we are, I think, going to run out of time, I think. So we're going to do one last question, and hopefully this one's a fun one. So how are you all equipping your team as they go forward to learn agentic AI and adapting to the new environment? And what's one skill that you would prioritize overall? Let's start with Mark.
So, as I noted before, lots of encouragement of trial and error. I would say for the young people, they are often the most enthusiastic about trying the new tools and pushing the envelope and seeing where things can go. But as for Brenda's example in cardiology oncology, fortunately my analysts aren't solving cancer problems. they often don't see the problems of the tools or the answers that the tools are coming back with, and that's where you need some of the people who have some more experience or gray hair to evaluate what's coming out and giving more direction about, like, okay, this is encouraging, let's keep going down this path, or no, this isn't working at all, like kill that project and move on to the next.
Should I go next?
Yeah.
So, as a leaders, I think in this era that we are facing with, I think that one of the most important thing is for the leaders to create stability for the organization and not pretending that there is certainty and assurance exists, because it doesn't. So how do we make sure that we provide that, create that stability and confidence for the team? And I think we can do that in 3 ways. One, as a leader, you need to continue being adaptable and continuous learning. I mean, if you are keeping up with the trend, I feel like every day there is a new solution and or new application and software is coming out that is going to impact whether it's a software development, whether it's a business capability, whether it's research, whether to your point it's marketing capabilities and so forth. And how do we make sure as a leaders we're constantly learning, but at the same time adaptable and to really be the role model for the organization to be able to adhere and pivot to the new tooling and the new technology. The second thing is not being perfectionist. Like, we don't need to have all the data to be able to make a decision. So how do we get our team comfortable to start experiencing and doing a proof of concept with the data that they have at hand and not looking for the perfection so they can test and learn, because that's actually how we can train the AI models and so forth to get mature to the next level. And then third and last is active listening. We tend as a leaders feel like that we should have all the answers and we should know everything. But at the end of the day, the way that the technology is evolving and the trend is you want to be able to actually not only listen to your direct leaders at your table, but also listen to everybody in the organization at all levels to really hear what is happening on the ground, so that we can form a decision and drive the decision and obviously the implementation. So I would say those are my recommendations.
So to help equip my teams, I first set the expectation that AI is not a side project, it's not a tool, it's something that should be embedded in every part of their workflow. Really asking the team what percentage of their time at work is overhead. And I would ask everybody here the same, like, think about that. And then what percentage of the time at work is actually thinking and judgment? Anything that is overhead in 3 years will be completely done by AI. Just imagine that world. Now implement AI where you can into those administrative overhead type tasks. Start today. To make it safe for the team, I made sure that we had our own sandbox with the LLM governed by the rules of the company. I also started to buy best-in-class, best-of-breed technologies, AI-powered, and started to put it into our marketing automation, our marketing website, our marketing tools. So both things help the team. In addition, I invited an AI Scrum Master to help us iterate and learn together as a team. So those are a couple of things that I did for the team, but I would encourage you to do it for your teams as well as do it for yourself. In terms of what I look for when I evaluate some of the outputs, because people are learning, some of the outputs are uneven, right, in terms of quality. And so I really want to make sure that the quality of the outputs are authentic, because nobody wants marketing that looks like AI, particularly the big companies, big brands out there. To ensure that it doesn't look like AI, I train on 3 things. One is prompt quality. I make sure they are asking the right questions. 2, I make sure that I'm helping the team judge on quality output, right? You can't just be dazzled by the fact that it takes 2 seconds. You have to make sure the output is something you would be comfortable doing yourself. The 3rd thing I look for is that they're solving the problem that is the best suited for AI, right? Because some problems, they aren't worth the AI effort, so to speak. And then more generally, I look for learning agility, right? AI is changing so fast every day. You don't need to be an AI expert. Claude, ChatGPT, they're coming out with things daily, new product releases daily. You just have to know what problem you're trying to solve, what work you're trying to do, and pick the best tool just to do it. But you don't need to be like an AI tech expert. Anyone can do AI.
Thank you, all 3 of you, for all the great insights. I think all of us took away something, and I know I'm going to start writing a few more agents on my Copilot upstairs. So with that, thank you very much. I'm going to hand it over to Mani Padrani to close out this wonderful day.
Thank you. First of all, thank you, Sarah.